Hi, and welcome into More Than Mortgages once again, episode number 10. Thanks to all of you who have watched one or all nine. I don't even think my mom's watched all nine, but thanks to you guys for hanging out and checking in with us, following our content, and so forth. And last week, we discussed blended rate. And I know that a lot of you may have a mortgage sitting in that 3% neighborhood, give or take a little bit, half a point maybe, but a lot of people are sitting at really low rates. However, if you watch last week's show, we broke down how your household budget may not be at 3%. Your overall budget may be more at like 7%. We showed you ways that you can save and ways that you can decrease that number and put a lot more money in your pocket. So go back and check that one out. Today, though, we're going to talk about society and what they do to us in terms of getting in our heads a little bit and teaching us that it's okay to borrow a lot of money. You just need to focus on what you have to pay monthly. And it's not really about what you're spending. It's what can you afford on a paycheck to paycheck type of cycle. So we're going to bring in Zach Jones. There he is. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. It's all good. I'm up for the challenge of trying to put a positive spin and maybe an upbeat look on everybody's favorite topic these days with debt. Chad, I think that consumer debt is at an all-time high because of this kind of spending spree that everybody has maintained since the beginning of COVID. And it's a little bit of an odd situation too, because the amount of equity that we have in our homes as homeowners is also at an all-time high. So I don't really know how those numbers shake out. I'm just now thinking about that, and I don't know if maybe we don't have as much equity as we think we do because our debt is so high, and our actual net worth might not be reflected in those really high equity numbers. That's interesting.
Remember the old, I just remember this from going to football games. Go to a football game, there's a stand on the corner, and it's get your free t-shirt if you apply
Yep.
for a Titans credit card
Yep.
or an Alabama credit card. And Zach, you weren't cool, man, if you didn't have that MasterCard with the Crimson Tide logo on it. All right.
Right.
Like
You
that
you had to rep the team
that
when
was
you
cool.
pulled that credit card out to overspend.
That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I spoke at my old high school a few years ago. And I think this was 2020, like the month before COVID, because it was January. And I spoke at the high school. And I remember being in there and telling a few of the kids, like talking about Jordans, the
Right.
shoes, and just kind of breaking it down. Like, all right, so if you swipe the credit card and you pay this, all right, and then yeah, look, you get these brand new Jordans, and it's like, $15 a month. But then they tack on 29% interest, and then 29% interest, and then 29, like every month. And like you keep going, and then you show them what you really pay for the Jordans, and their mind was just completely blown. It's
Yeah, there was
insane. People don't realize that.
there was a picture that came through. I remember they were doing they did a pair of tennis shoes at a rent to own store, and they
Mhm.
had to express the total amount due after whatever, it was a 60-month payment plan or something on these shoes. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
$11,000 or something for a pair of tennis shoes.
Especially the for the kids, who are 10, and so they're wearing a size like, I don't know, 4 or whatever you wear when you're 10. And they're doing a 5-year repayment plan, but in 5 years your foot's going to be a 10 or an
Yeah.
11 or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
No, they're gone in 6 months around my house, so
Yeah,
that's
that too. Yeah. Or
that's
they go to the dog bin after a
right,
little while.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Uh,
literally.
it's funny, but that is what we're taught, right? So in the mortgage world, we have this thing where we look at, and mortgages can be a little guilty of it too, to be fair, because we analyze qualifying you on a home with this thing called debt to income ratio. And
Mhm.
that's simply based on not your balance. I'm sure you do too, Zach. I have people who I talk to all the time where you're getting pre-qualified, and they say, oh, well, yeah, I owe 50,000 on this car, and I got 15,000 in credit card debt, and 80,000 in student loans because I co-signed, but I co-signed on and on and on,
Yeah.
right? Guys, let me just tell you, the mortgage world also is set up to where we only care about your payments. That's it. It
Right.
is you pass a test in the mortgage world on the back end, getting super nerdy and granular here, but it's called ATR, ability to repay. That's what everything is decided on, is your ability to repay. Plus, of course, your credit and other things. But when it comes down to looking at your payments, that's what we look at. But it's interesting, Zach, because we're told finance everything and you can just simply live above your means. But that's a dangerous place to go, which is why the blended rate example last week is so relative to what we're talking about today.
Right. Right. It's we're very much focused on the minimum payment that shows up on your credit report when we analyze your debt ratio or debt to income ratio. And the other piece of that, the other side of it, is also kind of um, it stretches a little bit. There's a good reason behind it. The other side of it is that we go on your gross income before you have any deductions. And so if you make $60,000 a year, your income is $5,000 a month. Now you may only see $3,400 of that when after Uncle Sam gets through with it and the insurance guy gets through with it and your 401k gets through with it. But we have to look at that total gross income. Otherwise, we get into a situation where we can be discriminatory in our lending practices because, we might develop a rule in the mortgage business where we start taking deductions off of income as a percentage for how many children you have. Well, now suddenly you're discriminating against people with families or people with 4 kids versus 2 kids. We simply can't do that in the lending business. It has to be as fair as possible across the board. So when we're looking at those calculations, we take the gross income of what you make on your pay stub, and then we divide the minimum monthly obligations that you have on your credit report into that. There's some special calculations that we have to do about student loans now, and that's changed. Gosh, it keeps changing. It changes all the time about how lenders are viewing student loans that are in deferral, income-based repayments, minimum payments, how much we have to assign to those. So that's not even probably worth getting into because as soon as we broadcast it, it'll change again.
It's so true. It's so true. They go from 1% to 0.5%, but VA is different, but only if it's less or only if that calculation's more than what's on your credit report. But if it's deferred, it's okay. But then
Yep.
there's income-based repayment. It is it is a mirror maze, is what it
Yep.
is, when
Yep.
it comes to student loans. So yeah, again, and I don't know this answer. I'm more just throwing this out there. Like, what happened in America to get to this point? I'm kind of surprised just of how nerdy I am on things that I don't know. But when did MasterCard start? When did Visa start? And when did we begin down this path? I truly don't know the answer. If you guys know, I'm going to go Google it later, but drop it in the comments here.
Yeah,
Um,
my feeling is
what
that that's
triggered it?
probably in the 70s somewhere. I know that mortgages haven't been around forever, and they were maybe the 50s when real mortgages started. I think that there was some available in the 30s, maybe farm mortgages and that sort of thing. But that revolving consumer debt is a relatively new phenomenon. And you think, well, golly, that's 70 years ago, or 75 or 55 years ago,
Yeah.
if it started in 1970. But it really is. It's interesting to think about that. And I think about probably my first credit card was 85 ish, and it was kind of a magical phenomenon to me because my parents never really utilized debt. And I'm looking at this toy that I want somehow, and hey, listen, I can buy that, and it's only $7 a month more. And there's a seductive element to debt that is really, I mean, gosh, it's a standard way of American life now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's literally the keep up with the Joneses.
Yep.
right? I mean, that's it.
Or to have whatever you want without the consequences of having to pay for it
Right.
outright. Yeah.
So
Immediate gratification.
I'll self-report here. I use 2 credit cards. How many do you use?
I have one credit card that I use. I don't even think that I'm not even sure that I have the other ones. I have active actual plastic cards. So I
You're
use
better than
one
me.
and we I don't carry any balances on that one. So that's just kind of the way that we've chosen to run things around here.
Yeah, so I say I have 2. I actually have more because I have a few business cards or whatnot, when it tied to like an LLC or something like
Right.
that. But as far as my personal expenses, we keep 2, and I do it because of just simply travel. That's
Points.
what I feel like a ton of people in Nashville do. Everybody has the Southwest Visa card, it feels
Right.
like. We do Amex, prefer Delta if possible, but then
Because you're
we also
bougie.
do,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't like to do general admission boarding.
I
That's all.
know. The
Yeah,
cattle call, man. Everybody hates the cattle
it
call.
is. So I've thought about this before too. You know what a great TikTok would be? Is if you had
Mm,
people who were in the A groups because they're all like chummy with each other, like
right.
we're all going the same place. It's okay. No, well, I'm 21. Well, I'm 22. It's all right. Just stay right there. We're all gonna get on. It's
Right.
fine.
They're
You know.
happy. Right.
Then the family boarding is sitting over there like we have a C ticket, but we're family boarding.
Right.
We got little kids, so we get on next. We're basically A plus is what we are. And then you
That
got the
baller
B
rolls
people.
up in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
He's like the king for once. He's like
Then
he gets the A seat, right?
then you got the B people, and B1 through 30, they're usually like a little anxious because they're starting. You can see them start to count where they're like, all right, well, if he's going, okay, and there's
Right.
another one, and then they're like 1, 2, like everybody, okay, and then
Looking for the
B31 through
aisle seat.
60,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
B31 through 60, that's where it starts to get a little testy. That's
Yeah.
where people are like, no, no, you're
Yeah.
B38. You need to be back here.
You're
I'm
behind me. I'm
36.
B37. I'm
Yeah.
B37. You don't
2 back,
understand.
1 back. Yeah. It would be
That's
an epic TikTok because it's
that would
so
be a
true
good
and
one.
everybody
Yeah.
could relate.
Yeah.
I'm just not good enough at pulling off. I'm not good enough at executing the comedy, but that would be a good one to put out
They
there.
might throw you out of the Southwest terminal too if you were trying to pull that off in an actual airport.
Yeah, they probably will. Yeah, it
It would
wouldn't
be
go
over.
well. Yeah, it would be a
Right.
makeshift production is for sure. All right, last couple of things on the credit card stuff. One thing people do need to realize, okay, now we've talked about cash out refinances, and that is honest to God, even if your mortgage rate goes up 3, 4 points from what you have now, it could still make sense. I know
Right.
that may sound crazy. Go back and look at our episode last week on blended rate. And I think
Blended
the
rate.
title is What Are You Really Paying in Interest, or What is Your Real Mortgage Rate, or something like that. Go back
Episode
and check
9.
that out. Yeah,
Yeah.
episode 9, because cashing out could put you in a better situation right now. So that's number one. Number two is balance transfers. Have you seen a lot of these lately, Zach?
I don't it seems like it's periodic that I'll get a customer that's like done 3 or 4 balance transfers, and they're usually it seems like to me anyway, when I see it on a mortgage application, it's the client who's really stretched out. They're trying to make ends meet. Maybe they're doing that strategically to try to save a little bit more money for a down payment. But
Mhm.
I don't know that I've seen a lot of that lately, and I don't know if it's I've never executed that strategy, so I don't even know if it's a prevalent kind of thing that's being sold a lot right now.
Well, buddy, it is.
Is it?
It is. Yeah, I can tell you,
Good timing for that.
I get inundated with a lot of those marketing type emails,
Right.
and I can tell you that it is a real thing, and it is something that I've taken advantage of. Other people are looking at taking advantage of. It's pretty cool because when you do a balance transfer, a lot of times they offer a 0% introduction period.
Yeah, you
So,
get that like for 6 or 9 or 12 months.
right, yeah. So there are a few of them out there, 0%. And what they do is they charge you a transfer fee. I think it's usually around 3%. So if you're
Yeah,
transferring
that's
$10,000,
fair.
it's $300 fee. But yeah, you get 0% interest for anywhere from, like Zach said, 6 months to 12 months. So if anything, you should be doing that because it gives you at least a chance to attack the debt to where,
Right.
okay, I'm paying, and even if you only get it down a little bit, whatever, it's better than currently paying what you're paying. So yeah, that's just another one that's out there. I don't think enough people talk about, but balance transfers are 100% a real thing, and good,
The
very good.
the only downside there might be opening up a new credit account if you've got
Mhm.
too much going on with your revolving debt. So you got to kind of keep that in mind if you're thinking about doing a mortgage here anytime soon. But if that's not on the horizon and that's somewhere down the line that you think you might be buying a house or trading up or something, then good strategy because you'll recover from a newly opened credit card relatively quickly. If you lose points, they come back pretty fast.
Yeah, that's true. So those are both good. And then the last thing, I guess, and you kind of touched on it. How do you get out of it? I mean, there's the cash out refinance, and then there's a balance a cash out refi can completely get you out of it and probably save you money. A balance transfer doesn't get you out of the debt. It actually slightly adds to the debt initially, but it reduces that interest rate so much that you attack the actual balance a lot more aggressively than what you're
Right.
currently doing. But aside from that, I mean, what do you think? Simply behaviors? I mean, that's
I think
about it,
it's
right?
yeah, I think it's budgeting, not adding to it. Everybody's heard of Dave Ramsey and all the tricks and tips and people freezing their credit card in a block of ice so they'll only use it in an emergency. It's not going to happen. I mean, you and I have talked about this. Even though that completely debt free philosophy might not be for everybody, there is a lot of people out there that could stand to cut up that card and wipe their caches clean on the memory on the I don't know, the Amazon account or whatever. Just stop that behavior for a while because I mean, think about the jokes that you see. I saved $497 by going in and doing the Target shopping by myself and running in for the whatever it was that my wife was going to go get, or you know um, the guys joking about the $1.50 hot dog at Costco when they just spent $593 on junk that they didn't even really know that they needed. So a lot of that is that shopping behavior, and that gets into the just knowing yourself. If you can't go into a store without overbuying, then don't go into the store. Figure out a different way to get that shopping done. We see that a lot with over shopping for Christmas. People go in with a budget and say, I'm going to spend X number of dollars on this person for a gift, but they spend an equal amount on themselves because they saw things that they wanted and weren't on the Christmas list, whatever. So a lot of it, man, is behavior and self-control, delayed gratification.
Yeah, it's like being an addict, right?
Yeah,
You're just not being an addict with something that could kill you. I
yeah.
mean, it would just put you
Well,
in a bad spot. Yeah, right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just
kinda.
consumption. Yeah, it's that
Yeah.
consumption, that consumerism. The Stanley Cups are a great example of
Oh
that.
my god, look, yeah, if you find a Stanley Cup, 100% swipe your credit card to get your Stanley Cup.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
that's
especially if
that's
you have
the hall
11
pass.
other colors, 11 color, that's not even an even dozen. You need to even that out a little bit. It's like evening up the pie. You gotta get
It's
that thing
crazy,
even.
man. I've never I've never seen anything like it, to be honest.
It's nutty.
Um, here's one last thing, just because you brought his name up, is Dave Ramsey. He does a lot of good things, okay? He preaches a lot of good topics, but he's preaching a lot of basic common sense to the masses, and a lot of his thoughts are also flawed. So
Mhm.
just keep that in mind. That's not a knock. Dave is obviously successful. He's a whole lot more successful than I am. Okay. He's got more money than I do, if you want to measure it that way. That's fine. However, these ideas of like save up 20% to buy a home. Wait till you can afford a 15-year mortgage. Don't use credit. You need credit, guys. Otherwise, you're going to come to me, and guess what? When you don't have a credit score, you have a higher interest rate on my no credit score programs. So now you're paying more interest on something, and it's like, oh, and by the way, we may not offer a 15-year mortgage on that program that has no credit score. So now it's like, which one do you do? And also, it's, if you think about it, when you buy something, if you didn't buy a house in 2019 because you listened and thought, oh, I can't do that because I don't have 20% down yet, your house would have almost doubled since then.
Right.
So,
well, and Chad, I'll throw this in there. I did happen to catch Dave on the radio during COVID, and there was a discussion he was having and said, hey, listen, that 20% down thing, we're going to pass on that for now. We're giving a hall pass on it. Just buy the house, because you're not going to be able to if you don't do it now. So,
and to be fair, you're right. He did get on. It was floating around Facebook quite a bit, a video or audio of him saying that. You're right. Just in the last year and a half, of go ahead and buy a house, because you can refinance later when rates come back down.
Away. I mean, the opportunity, the windows and the doors were closing, and the barn door was closing. Everything was closing up because the prices,
Yeah. And so, like I said, to be fair, he preaches a lot of good topics, and a lot of good ways to get yourself out of debt. But a lot of it is simple discipline and math. It's not like a secret sauce. It's just discipline and math. But again, don't let that be confusing with buying a house, and is it a good time to buy, or putting 20% down, or missing the boat because of something that may have come across. So anyway, that was good. Debt, can be good when it's used correctly, but it can also be like that drug that takes you down a really bad dark path. So Zach, real quick, we haven't done this yet, but tell us about your social media, where to find you, and some of the stuff you put out every day.
Facebook, Zach Jones, at Zach Jones Loans on Instagram, at Zach Jones Loans on YouTube. And I'm not real active. I don't do anything on Twitter. So most active probably with short video content on Instagram. So go like and follow me there, and then stay in touch with these channels, because Chad and I are both building our channels independently of this joint podcast, and there's a lot of content coming out.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Just some of the feedback and whatnot. Even if it's just man, I love your video, or hey, I've watched 3 of them. You guys are great. Like, just even that, it really is like a little extra fuel or energy to confirm
Very
that
helpful.
we're not a couple of doofuses or complete idiots. So we do enjoy those. Myself, at This Chat Is Real. I'm pretty active Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you go to my Twitter, it's the same handle, but it's going to be a little more sports and trash talking if you're up for that. But just FYI, it's not as much of these topics that we go over here. So for Zach Jones, Chad Anderson, thanks for watching More Than Mortgages. We'll be back next week, have some more info and content for you. Remember to like, subscribe, follow, hit the bell, comment, DM, whatever you can, whatever you got. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us.